welcome to the first video on my channel and our first Total War campaign. So, we will be playing as Macedon in the Grand Campaign. This is the Divide Impera mod that I'm using. It's a little bit unstable on the new update, or at least I think there's been a new update which has made it a bit unstable, so we'll see how we go. But I've tried out a few battles and a few campaigns and I've run into very few issues with Macedon. So of course we are a successor state of Alexander the Great, and definitely the rightful inheritance of that empire, although it is significantly divided and there's not much of an empire left if you look outside of maybe Syracuse and Archaea and you have Ptolemaic legions. So of course we're going to be starting with the challenge, which is very hard, and we're starting around 278 BC. With Macedon, we have a bit of a resistance to foreign occupation, which is definitely going to help with us taking over factions which aren't Hellenic in culture. But when we do start getting into those battles, we will have a bit of a morale bonus, which is very important to what we're doing here, and it'll ensure that our phalanx line and our pikemen are very strong and aren't as likely to rout. We also have increased morale against the barbarians, which is definitely going to help us looking to secure our initial province here. And we also have increased industrial income, so if we can get hold of some good trade resources in our settlements, that will definitely help us out. We also have a bit of a minor diplomatic penalty with all the Hellenic factions, so we'll see how that goes. Sparta isn't too unhappy with us, and I believe we do start with an initial defensive alliance with them. I could be wrong on that. We also have Athens to worry about, and they're not too friendly with us, but overall we do have a bit of a initial challenge, especially in diplomacy, but I think we can overcome that. The units available to us as Macedon in the Grand Campaign, we'll start with our generals. So our first general unit is a phalanx infantry unit, so very stable stats. So we've got decent melee attack and a very high melee defense, and we've also got great armor and base morale, which is definitely going to help us ensure that our general is nice and stable and is unlikely to get wiped out by melee or missile infantry. And of course we've got that bonus against cav, so all around a very good unit, and definitely a unit I'll consider for my generals in the campaign. Moving on, we've got some shock cavalry on my general. Not really what I'm looking for. I'm much more inclined to choose a general unit that is a lot more defensively stable, so we'll be avoiding this one in our campaign. And we've got the melee cav general unit, so very good stats all round, melee attack and defense. Charge bonus is pretty low for a cavalry unit in the game, so that's a bit of a downside, but I'm sure we can move along from that. And of course we've got some ammunition as well. It's definitely going to help us soften up the enemy before we go in for that rear charge or that cavalry engagement. And we've got decent armor and pretty good base morale. Speed 6 a bit low, but I think we can overcome that if we use this unit. Starting with our melee infantry, nothing too special here. With that morale armor, definitely not a unit I'm going to look to use. It's not really a staple for the army, to be honest. Not really much of a charge bonus either, and the armor penetration is very bad, so even as a flanking unit, this unit's not going to be much use to us. Moving on to White Shield Infantry, pretty much the same story, a little bit better on that charge bonus, so we might use it earlier in the campaign, but to be honest, we'll try and avoid using it, especially for the low armor, and I mean, it has decent morale, but I think there's better units that we can use to flank the enemy. Then we have some Thracian warriors. So this is a unit that I can definitely see myself using, especially because I like to put my sword infantry on the flanks, supported by the cavalry, of course, and with a melee attack of 15 and a melee armor penetration damage of 11. It's definitely a unit that I can use to soften up the enemy's front line and to flank and get through their heavier units. So with morale, the morale is very, very meh for what I'd like to see in my sword infantry, but we'll see how we go with them. I think we'll move on to a better unit as soon as possible. Of course, we got the Thurios Swordmen, not particularly anything more interesting than these guys, just a little bit better in stats and a bit more stable with that higher base morale. And to be honest, I prefer to use these guys, but we'll see how we go and who is available to us at the start of the campaign. Moving on, we got some Cretan infantry, pretty low armor, pretty low melee attack, armor penetration damage, so still probably not quite the unit we're going to be looking for, but it's got decent melee attack, melee defense, and I could see it being of use to us, but we'll just have to see, I guess. And we got some Agrarian Axemen. So these guys have very good melee armor penetration damage. Definitely would like to start using these guys on the flanks. They've got a bit of a higher melee defense, and they've got better morale and armor than our friends here, the Thracian warriors. These guys are going to be a bit more stable, and of course they're not disciplined, which is a bit of a shame. In fact, these guys aren't either, but with all these terrain advantages and the fact that they're able to be in hiding, it's actually a pretty good unit I can see us using. And they've got a bit of ammunition as well, decent base morale, and they're looking pretty good. Then we've got Royal Peltis. I'm probably not going to use these guys because, of course, they do have high melee attack, but the armor penetration is a bit low. They are disciplined, but I think there's better units for what I'd be looking to use in our force. Then we've got the Thorax Swordmen, which are available on the second tier barracks. So once again, these guys are going to be good for flanking, high melee attack, decent melee defense. With the melee armor penetration damage, that's a bit of a shame because they're not quite going to be as effective on the heavily armored units. But at the start of the game, when we're up against some barbarians, I think they could still be pretty useful to us because of the enemy's low armor. And of course, morale, armor, disciplined, pretty good all around, and we'll see if we can get these guys into our army. And we've got the Galatian Thorax Swords, which I suppose are a third tier barracks unit. It's again very good melee attack, melee armor penetration damage, not too great. So these guys are definitely more of a counter light infantry, or a bit more of a better against light armored opponents. The base morale and armor is very good, however, and they've got one javelin to throw, which is always a great thing to see. Moving on to the spear infantry, we've got pretty standard units across the Hellenic factions, with a melee attack of 8 and a melee defense of 17. I can definitely see these guys being useful. The morale's not too impressive, but it's good enough for the early game, and a bit of armor never hurt anybody. And moving on to the Thurios Spears, pretty much a similar story, to be honest. Just looks to me like overall they're a little bit of a worse unit. We'll see how we go with these guys. Then we have the Thorax Spearmen, so these guys will be good on our front line. Maybe putting them between a flanking infantry unit like the Thracian Warriors would be good, just so they can get that little bit of security to our phalanx infantry units and help stop them being flanked. They of course have a discipline formation and discipline, so if a general unfortunately does die, we do not have to worry so much about these guys breaking. And they've got a hollow square formation, which is good if we, like I said, put them between our flanking infantry and our phalanx infantry, just so they can help secure us from flanking attacks. Moving on to our phalanx infantry, pretty standard stuff at the start here for the Hellenic factions. Moving on to more interesting things, we have the Greek bronze shield pikemen, who of course can form a pike phalanx, which is very good for holding our enemies up and stopping them from really getting damage into our front line and keep them away from our missile units. Very poor melee armor penetration damage, not too worried about that because that's not really what we'll be using them for. Armor, decent. Morale, decent. Definitely a unit I'd like to put in our early game army. And moving on to the Royal Pikemen, a bit more melee attack, melee defense, and the Harplate Phalanx. Decent armor, pretty good morale, very good against elephants, although that's not really something we'll be coming up against in the early game. Pretty average melee armor pen, decent weapon damage, decent charge bonus, not too applicable to what I'll be using these guys for, but we will see. Then we have the Thorax Bronze Shield Pikes. Similar story, these guys have a bit more weapon damage, pretty much a better unit than these boys here. We'll see if we can get these guys in. I think they may be the second or third tier barracks, but we'll see if we can get them nice and early. Then we have the Shield Bearers, so they of course have a more standard phalanx, so again they're more of a unit I could see myself using to buffer the melee and the other phalanx infantry. We'll see though, because like I said, I'm liking the look of these guys a little bit more, and I prefer to have some spear infantry kind of as the buffer. But we'll see who we unlock first, and we'll look at the upkeep as we go through the campaign. Then we have the Elite Guard. I doubt we'll be seeing these guys for a few episodes, but we have standard armor pen, good weapon damage, very good melee attack, very decent melee defense. These guys, of course, can form a Harplate Phalanx, which will be good for us. Very good armor, very good base morale, disciplined unit. Definitely some guys we want to get into our military force. And we got some Greek archers, Greek slingers, the like. Definitely want to try and combine the use of the archers and the slingers, because of course the archers have a bit more higher, I was going to say they have a higher missile damage, and they do. The armor penetration isn't quite as good, if I recall correctly, but the slingers, who have a little less missile damage, have a bit better armor penetration in their range. So we'll see if we can combine these guys, just so we've got a bit of versatility in who we have in our force. With the Peltis, I'm not a particularly big fan of using them. We'll see who we come up against if we start facing a lot of heavy infantry. Definitely some guys I'll look to use, but I prefer having that higher range, of course, with our missile infantry. And I prefer to use my missiles to just take out the enemies so they can't quite soften up our front line and flanking units. We've got some better mercenary slingers here, who I imagine are going to be quite expensive in upkeep. They've got very good range, 20 ammunition, that's a pretty good amount, and the morale, all that stuff, pretty standard for the unit. And we got the Cretan archers, who are looking pretty good for the later game, but I think we'll be using these guys for a decent amount of time in our campaign. With the shock cavalry, not particularly a big fan of shock cavalry. I prefer to use more like melee focused cavalry, so I can tie up and just get rid of the opposition or the enemies. Melee cav, so we can secure a bit of space on the flank for our melee infantry to get nice and involved. So if I'm seeing low melee defense on our boys here, they're usually not going to be used in a campaign. But if we do come up against some very heavily armored and units that have really good morale, we'll definitely look at getting these guys just so we can soften them up, so we don't have to just whittle them down slowly. So with our melee cav, so of course we'll be looking for a bit more higher melee defense and some decent morale. These guys are pretty good, and I can imagine we'll be using them at the start of our campaign. Moving on to the Tarantine cavalry, a bit more usable because they've got that extra ammunition as well. The stats are a little, I'd say a little worse than our friends here, but I think the ammunition makes up for it. The Royal Squadron here, more shock cav again with our friends here, the Sacred Squadron. Maybe when we start getting the higher units, I'll look at bringing in a bit more shock cavalry. Then we have the late Sacred Squadron, who look very good, and I definitely want to get these guys in, just so we can quickly cancel out the enemy's cavalry and start doing rear charges. With 50 charge bonus, that's definitely going to be good for us, and of course they are disciplined, and they can fire while moving, despite not having any ammunition, which is a bit strange, but I'll allow it, game. And then we've got our missile cav. I'm not looking specifically for cav that are missiles, so I'll probably skip these two here. These guys, however, have a decent amount of ammunition, and they look fairly good in melee. The morale is a little bit low for my liking in a prolonged cavalry engagement. With the armor of 23, nothing too special there, but that will help us out a bit against the enemy's archers and the like. And we've got some Royal Squadron here. Melee attack, melee defense, pretty decent. The armor's 38 and the morale is 46. And ammunition is 6 as well. Could see myself using these guys, but we'll see how we go. I think I prefer to use these guys even though they don't have the ammunition. So, without any further ado, let's get into the campaign.
Faced with hostility from Epirus, Sparta should remain true and may distract Epirus long enough for you to consolidate your rule at home. Conflict with the remaining successor kingdoms is inevitable, and you must be ready. Do not be afraid to seek military support from others if necessary. Rest assured, Macedon is the true heir to Alexander's legacy. It will rise once more.
Alright, cheers champ. Let's have a look at our initial objective. So, completely control 2 provinces through the usual stuff, and we get a little bit of reward, so of course we'll end up doing that eventually, at least assuming this campaign isn't a complete failure. So, let's have a look at our diplomacy situation. Alright, so the Greek states aren't particularly happy or friendly to us, but let's have a look and see if we can secure our position a little bit. So we'll be looking at securing our initial province, but I'm also considering having a look at Thrake here, because I think that provides a bit of an easier path for expansion. So maybe Thrake and Macedonia as our first little areas of expansion. So, looking at diplomacy here, we have the Tribali, who...
Sit, friend, and let us talk, and let us have good wine until we can talk no more.
Sounds like a plan, mate. So, let's have a look. Got a bit of trade here, and we got a non-aggression pact.
I will take word of our agreement.
And the RDI here. So I did have a quick playthrough, and these guys look like they'll give us a bit of a payout.
Purpose and honesty.
I think they'll give us the full amount. Awesome.
All praise to the gods. They have led us to wise speech and heartfelt friendship.
I think that's probably a bit optimistic.
As clouds gather,
you want me to pay you for it? No way, mate. There we go. That's a pretty bad trade deal you're offering me there.
Your mouth talks.
Let's see if Bithynia will give us anything.
So you may speak as you wish, and we will give you an honest answer.
So of course, I know I'll be going for a few non-aggression pacts that might pose a problem to our expansion later, but I think it's still worthwhile just so we've got a bit of friendly guys around us who probably aren't going to just take us out or gang up on us.
Our joint enemies would tremble if we were your allies. You have
Cheers,
served
mate.
your people well today. This acceptance has earned you respect and the blessing of Athena.
Thanks, man. That's all I ever wanted. Bithynia's respect.
Greetings, my friend. You have
I think these guys are going to be a little bit harder for us to get some relationships with. Not really interested in what these guys want or what we can get from them, because of course they are an area for expansion for us. Looking at our technology, we start off with the second tier barracks unlocked. Our public order is a bit of a shambles, but I think we can work on that and improve our standing. So it might be a little bit of a slow start while we wait for this barracks to get in, but we'll see how that goes, and we'll move our spy over here. So let's see who we've got available to us. Okay, so we got some decent melee cavalry and some shock cavalry. Both of these guys are looking fairly useful. I think we'll start with some of these guys. And we'll look at getting a decent front line here. So we might grab a couple of these boys and we'll probably fill out the rest with some of these lighter troops. But just having a bit of discipline and troops like know can hold their own is just going to be really useful for us. And let's see who our mate is here. Of course, we've got the Basilius as our starting guy, which is what we want, just so we can build that influence, so we can bully our political rivals. Speaking of which, not too bad. We got decent loyalty from the local Hellenic nobles, and they got good party traits. And same with our Macedonian nobility, militarist, it's pretty good to see, and expansionist as well. These guys here have a thirst for power, which is not what I want to see, but the hates barbarians trait is probably going to help us out with their loyalty, because that's who we'll be looking to take down first. Of course, we are protected at the start of the game, so we'll see how that treats us after that expires, and make sure, well, at least hope that we don't have to deal with too many rebellions or civil wars. And looking at these guys here, nothing too special to write home about or anything that I particularly want to use. Maybe the agrarian sellswords will be good for us. That's actually really good melee AP, so I might actually recruit these guys just so we've got a bit of flanking infantry to help us out. So I think that's about it for the start of our for the first turn of our campaign. So let's move on to the next.
We have war. The board is ready and the peace is in place. There is nothing else except to die well.
Fantastic. Sparta's against us. See if any of these other states decide to have a go. Alright, got a bit more troops in. Good to see. See what else we got. Might grab another one of these guys. Of course, I'm going to keep in mind our upkeep, and we'll grab a cavalry unit for our second guy. Moving our spy over here, We'll have a look, see how the rest of this area is looking. Not too bothered by these guys. Hopefully we can ambush them or something if we choose to declare war, because I think we'll struggle to just take their town with the army inside. Might be a little bit too much for us at this early point in the campaign. We might hold off on the mercenaries for a little bit here, see if anyone is a little bit more friendly to us.
Be welcome here, and speak as you wish. I am here to listen, if you...
Not particularly ideal to get into a alliance or to get a non-aggression pact with these guys, but if we do get teamed up on by the other Greek states, we'll see if we can send a little bit of money their way and get them on board with the rightful power in this area, of course, which is us. See if we can get some more trade from these guys. I'm not particularly hopeful about it.
Greetings.
Curiosity, we'll see what these guys think, and they do not think the same as us, apparently. Not looking for trade, of course, there. So, I think that's about it for our second turn here, and we'll end it there. Of course, this campaign might be a little bit slow until we build up a force that can do some damage to our hostile neighbours. So it might be a little bit more reactionary. We'll see if Sparta decides they want to send a force our way.
We shall have war, and poets will speak of it 10,000
Fantastic.
years hence, when all else is forgotten.
Looks like we'll be dealing with this area before we move to the east here, but I'm not overly bothered by that because of course this is part of our starting province. I might actually move our spy back towards these guys just so we get a bit of line of sight.
Swift and silent as a shadow. My work is done. For now.
Hopefully we can get a little bottleneck or an ambush around here, because I think that will definitely help us in terms of dealing with these guys. So we'll grab the cavalry and we'll start to look at bringing in a bit of cheaper units just to fill out our force a bit, because I feel pretty confident with these guys in our front line and our flanking unit here. See if we can get another one if they become available again. So we'll probably be looking at these guys or these guys just to help finish our ranks. Probably these guys just because of that much lower upkeep. Alright, and our buildings are still underway, so we've got a couple more turns for that, and we'll see how we go. Of course, we'll try and get a champion into our army when we unlock its recruitment. Right, on to the next turn. Research a tech in philosophy. Let's have a quick look at that and see what we'd be looking for. Enables rank 1 dignitaries. That's pretty decent, so I don't mind following the game's prompted advice there.
My skills.
Let's see if we can do some damage to these guys and get a bit of experience. Alright, no dice on our first go, but it's alright, we'll just try again. And let's bring in a couple more of these guys. The Greek Javelin, probably avoid them, and we'll focus on these guys instead. See if our diplomacy situation's improved a little bit. Not looking like much has changed. Fortunately, we can't get a trade with Pergamon.
For the sake of friendship that has been,
and I think it's going to be similar with a lot of these other factions, if we're being honest. Especially how we don't have any special resources in our starting region. So, guess we'll just move on to our next turn here, do we? Let's see. So, we do actually have quite a bit of money, so I might actually renege what I said earlier about filling out our unit with a bit of cheaper units in favour of bringing in some units that will put us in the red but will help us secure another province and get going with having a fully an army that can pretty much take out whoever we come up against on the field. In terms of other units, I might look at getting these guys and bringing them in. We could. These guys aren't really going to be doing too much for us on the flanks, so we might just avoid using them, especially with that poor AP. If we, for our next unit, a bit of a tough choice between these two. I think we might get some of these guys, just because they've got a bit higher AP damage and their melee defense is looking pretty good, and just so we've got a bit more mobility, as opposed to having a complete phalanx line at the front. And we'll see if we can get a better outcome here. Brilliant. Just what you want to see, hey? Alright. What else can we do here? I think the RDI, they're at war, so we probably don't want an alliance with them just yet. The Tribali,
Greetings, friend.
they're also at war, but these guys seem pretty friendly to us. They're not going to take an alliance though, so that's a bit of a shame. Moving on, not too much we can do in our turn here. Let's just move on to the next. Of course, I'll have a couple puffs on my vape here, because of course that will help with my own morale, and we need our generals, including myself, to be at the top of our game. And the Athens is chosen to side against us. That's going to be a poor decision in the long term, as we'll help them find out. For our first thing here, I think we might just go for the improving our melee infantry and our phalanx infantry. I think that's going to be a good call, and we'll bring these guys in to help secure our flanks, because we can't recruit any decent melee infantry at the start of our campaign here. In terms of what else I'd like to look at, still only getting 2 per turn. I think that will change next turn, but we'll have to wait and see. In terms of our friends here, we can get a champion, which is what I'm going to do. We'll see who we've got. Bit of upkeep, replan. Yeah, I think we'll definitely go for our good old mate here, and we'll add him into our army at the start of next turn. And just to fill out the rest of our line, I think I might grab another one of these boys, and we'll grab another, I'd say probably a slinger unit, just so we get a bit more armor pen. Looking at diplomacy again, haven't really met any new factions. I wonder if the Seleucids would take a trade. They will not. With Macedon, they're a bit more of a industry-focused faction, so I think when we start getting trade resources, we'll focus a bit more on getting higher income as opposed to more of the tradable resources. Because I think in the long term, our trade partners are going to be few and far between. Our spy's still out of action, but I'm feeling pretty confident against good friends. Well, I should say, not our friends here. And I feel we can get a good outcome against them. Awesome, we got our spy back here. I did notice Athens are preparing a little bit of a force there, but it doesn't look too threatening at this point in time, if I'm being completely honest. The heralds here, maybe we could get some sabotage on them.
At your service. How can I be of assistance?
The outcome isn't looking particularly much better, but I'd rather get these guys just so we can maybe draw not impede the movement points of the other army, so we've got a opportunity to get an ambush in this little area here. So looking at our spy, let's see what we'd like to do. I'd definitely like to start moving into the reduced campaign movement, and also the murder action is also a good route to go down, so we'll just secure those skills there. Let's move our champion into the army here, and in terms of who else I want to get, I did say we'd get another melee unit, but I think we'll be alright. I might just get these boys on board, and in terms of what else I'd like to do, ideally I'd want another one of these guys, but it's not looking like it's going to happen. Though we did just upgrade our barracks, so we could be looking at some better units for flanking. The Royal Pikemen have good melee attack, but low melee armor penetration, so nothing too special right there. We might actually just grab another cavalry unit. We might grab these boys here. Do have some shot cav, which I said I wasn't particularly interested in, but I think if you look at the charge bonus here, I think we might just stick with these guys for the moment, just because they've got a bit more. They've got a bit more of a well-rounded unit with that extra melee defense. In terms of whether I want these guys, the Tarantine or the Citizen Cav, I think for the sake of the extra 15 units, I think that's just going to tide me over to want to get these guys. So let's move on to the next turn, and we'll start having a look at what we can do against the Aetolian League, I believe. I think the Aetolian League is what they are usually called in the base game without Divide et Impera. Looking at our settlement here, so we are experiencing a food shortage. In terms of what I want to do against that, so we've got heaps of time, so I don't need to worry about securing the loyalty of these guys just yet. We'll see if that becomes an issue, and I might send an agent to help with the food there. And while we're here, let's find a spouse for good Basilius. And, wow, we got a pretty terrible spouse, but we'll hold off on divorcing her at this point in time. And let's have a look at what we can, household items we can add. There's not really much to say about that at this point in time, and with our spy we actually don't have any at the moment. So let's move on. Alright, let's see if we can get something on our rival here. I'm willing to take that 12% chance. Jeez, the agent's not doing too great for us at the moment. Having said that, let's see what our ambush chance here is. I'm a little bit worried about them walking around us, so I might look at getting a general just to sit in Pella, just so if we do get sidestepped, we don't have to worry too much about that. What colour is Basilius? I think we are the red faction. Let's just have a quick look. We are not. We are the light purple faction here. So we might actually get this guy to come in and have a look. Just in case, because of course we do have Athens to worry about. Not worried about their force here in general, but we'll see. I'm pretty confident I can hold them off with garrison here, which is looking pretty decent, especially for this point in the campaign. Of course, with the general and the Greek Cav garrison unit, we've got two cavalries that will help us to flank the enemy when we get into the streets for combat.
We are...
And let's just see if we can get some security around here. Not looking too promising, unfortunately.
Greetings, my friend.
Ptolemy doesn't like us, that's unfortunate. Hopefully they won't pose too much of a problem to us at the start of the campaign.
I am honored to receive this embassy.
Not surprised nothing's really changing here, but
Greetings to you. I
I'm
trust
actually
you
see if I
come
can
with
get a more
honorable
aggression
words that I can
with
hear
these
kindly.
guys, just in case. 16, 40. If I chuck in a trade there, they're not quite looking for trade with us yet, and it's not worth too much. I'll keep this in mind, because we are running a little bit low on funds, and we are hemorrhaging a little bit of money each turn. Ideally, we want these guys to move out, and we want to intercept them. There's a 60% chance, but once again, I think our garrison can hold off an attack if they do get around us. So let's see what happens.
I speak as the sword cuts, direct to the bone of
Alright,
the matter.
I'll give you it for free. Athens look like they're scouting us out. Probably a precursor to an attack, but I feel confident if we can get these guys to march toward us, which they do not do. I was going to say we probably can take them out, but we'll go for the cavalry commander. I'm not quite sure. And we're not really looking to recruit cavalry at this point in time, so let's just go for that. Our hidden agent is exposed. Let's see if we can do a bit of damage here.
Aparta has taught.
Enemy agent detained, that's good. And let's see if we can get... Of course, we didn't finish. I was thinking we'd looked at this research, because of course we want a dignitary that will help with our income quite a bit. No dice, unfortunately, and I was thinking that we'd recruit that instead of the research we just finished. So let's see if these guys have the stones to walk towards our city.
Thy name shall be remembered.
Looks like we're going to have a bit of an agent spam from our friends in Athens. Not exactly what I want to see, but see if we can overcome them with our own agent. So I think we haven't quite come up against the Aetolian League quite yet. Or maybe we have. Now that is a little bit unfortunate. It seems like our friends here are a little bit unsure of coming towards us. Let's go for the campaign movement, and in terms of what else I'd like, see if we can reduce our attrition when we are besieging the enemy. I might give it another turn with our ambush plan, and then we'll see if we move into their territory and start raiding, if they'll be a little bit more proactive.
I welcome you, worthy speaker. I listen because your people
Well, it's a good
known
thing we
to
didn't
have
pay
honor.
the old blokes here to get on board with us. I wonder if we can, with 65 for trade, it's probably not going to be worth it for us. You have anyone who's a little bit more friendly around here?
Greetings, my friend.
I wonder if
You
Lydia
have my
would...
ear for your speech.
So
And
yeah,
if it profits
I'll
my
pay.
people,
I'll be willing to pay a
agreement
little
too.
bit. And Ptolemaic Egypt is a little bit more friendly, but I think we might have to give that a bit more time. On to the next turn. Good, so we got a bit of a public order bonus here, and it's going to help with the wealth and more resources. We won't go into bankrupt quite as quickly as we otherwise would. Just curious, we can't recruit enough one of these guys, which is a bit of a shame. But wonder, because there is a bridge here, it's a bit hard to see with this agent in the way. Just wondering if I do end up crossing that bridge,
How may I
if we can still get
I have seen it done.
if we can still get that bridge map, because that's definitely going to help us with on the battle map, if that does indeed end up being the case. If I move our guys here into ambush, to say ambush, but I'm a little bit hesitant of being in this area, because I'm not quite sure if the garrison would be able to reach us or would be able to reinforce if these guys do make a move. Having said that, if I move a little bit
Our advance has been
closer,
halted.
if that's allowed,
That path
the
is
agents being a bit of a nuisance. If you go into raiding,
What you don't steal.
wow, that's good for our income. So maybe we could look at getting a couple more units here. I might grab a couple of javelins just to help us shore up our defense of the city. How's Athens looking? I'm a bit worried about them attacking our settlement. I think though, if they get into the transport ship, they won't quite be able to reach us. But we'll see about that. I wonder if I can get these guys to join the war
There's
with
food enough
us.
for 2 armies awaiting us when
If
we
we
have
give
talk.
them a little bit of gold. It's not looking likely, unfortunately. How about a defensive alliance?
We will talk and then we will feast until our guts rumble and our backsides ache.
Right, not looking like we're going to get too much out of them. Let's end our turn. Now, I'm pretty confident that the Aetolian League will move towards us. I'm just hoping they're not within reinforcement range, if I'm being honest. How much have we got? So they aren't reinforced by the garrison. I reckon I'll have a go at fighting this one, just so we get a bit of action in our first campaign. With the battle deployment, well, it's saying that it doesn't think we'll win. We do have the cavalry advantage, which is going to help us quite a bit with our 5 units. I'm not too sure that how the Javcav's going to help us, but I think if we can hold them up a little bit, with our main force and just flank with these guys, I think we'll be in a good position. So let's jump in. Alright, that's our front line. Now, I would consider putting these guys in phalanx, but I think it would be a smart move to keep them mobile, just so we can see if we can move our guys forward a little bit and hit them or engage with them before the reinforcing army rocks up, which would be ideal, but I'm not going to hold my breath, to be honest with you guys. Let's put our javs in the middle there, and let's chuck a slinger on both sides, because our slingers do have a bit more range, of course. And we will put these guys on guard mode, just so we don't end up with them coming, well, walking into our front line to... That is a big general unit with 150 cav. I definitely think these guys are going to help us in the fight. And we'll chuck our cav on this flank. And let's chuck them there. And we'll put our Jav cav in group 6. Just to hold them in reserve, because to be honest, I'm not quite sure what I wanted to do with them at this point in time. We'll chuck them on skirmish mode as well, and let's kick things off. And let's advance towards our enemy here.
Enemy reinforcements approaching.
Cheers for the heads up, lad. So it is looking like we'll have a bit of a cavalry engagement on the left here, so we'll bring our Jav Cav over just to see what's happening.
By your command. Tarantine cavalry. Forward.
Might see if we can bring the cavalry engagement away from the enemy military, because I think that will help us out a little bit. And let's chuck these guys into pike phalanx, and we'll chuck these guys into the Harpatave phalanx, I believe it is called. Alright, let's move towards our mates here.
Hidden units have been discovered.
And we'll keep our Jav Cav in reserve for the moment. In terms of what I want to do with these guys, I think I'll just focus on the enemy's ranged units to kick things off. That's not quite ideal. Let's send these guys into the back of the enemy here. We'll try and keep them away from the enemy general. In fact, we might bring these boys out on the... Very strange move by the enemy to bring their skirms close to us like that, but we'll see what happens here.
One of our units has used all its ammunition.
I'm a bit wary of the enemy bringing in heaps of units, but I think it's going to be worthwhile if we just break this cavalry unit nice and early. And so let's move our general out and we'll bring our mates here round. Let's see if we can harass the skirms of the opposition a little bit. Let's bring our cav back. Or in fact, we might actually leave them in, bring our general in, see if we can just get into a bit of an engagement here. We'll send our swords in to occupy the enemy's spearmen there. Hopefully they won't cause us too much damage if we can just break the enemy general. In fact, we might actually bring them out now that the enemy's pulled off a little bit.
One of our units has used all its ammunition.
Slingers! By your command, sons of Ares!
Leave the javelin to their own devices, and see our general has withdrawn from that engagement, which is what we want to see, and we might just send those guys off to the Jav Cav. Now I'm a little bit worried about our friends here, the swordsmen, but I think we can sacrifice them a little bit. Let's bring these guys around.
One of our units has used all its ammunition.
Let's try not to get too caught up there. We'll bring these guys in just to soften up the flank a little bit. What happened to our other guys on the right here? Got them engaged in a bit of a melee there. We'll bring our companion cav back into the center. I think that's going to be a bit more ideal. I think our citizen cavalry would be able to take this engagement, so let's send them on their way. And let's take out these guys here. The cavalry here is a bit stuck in. See if we can withdraw them. If we can take out their general, that would be pretty good. Let's send these guys there. No, I'm not too worried if we lose these guys, hence I've kept them in the engagement. Let's see if we can harass these guys a little bit. Let's get them away from our units there. So overall the engagement's going pretty well for us. Let's see where our sword unit is here, just dealing with them, and we'll see if we can take out those guys here. Might send our Tarantine Cav back in, because these guys do look like they're ready to break any time. And we'll just see these skirmishes off. See if we do have the concentrate fire button here. Looks like they're not quite ready to waver anymore.
One of our units has used all its ammunition.
Let's soften up the back of these guys. We might just send these guys over here, clean up any routing units, and to ensure that we don't lose them. So we'll put these guys in the one group. Now this isn't quite ideal over there. If I bring these guys around, it should help us out with morale a little bit. And we'll withdraw these guys just before our mates over here rock up. Bring our general around here. Try and hit the formation here that's trying to pull a flank on us in the back. So we did bring these guys around, so let's start flanking with them. Let's bring these guys around to see these guys off. Just engage them in combat so we can just make sure they break and don't come back, and we'll send our general into these guys for the similar reason. And let's put these guys on them. We have run out of... These guys are a bit vulnerable outside of phalanx, so I might just leave them. And we've just killed the enemy general. Brilliant. Exactly what we want to see. Let's continue with that. Just clean up these units because I don't want to see them coming back. And let's see if we can get a nice little flank with the peltists here. Let's withdraw our cavalry from that engagement. Start hitting these guys in the rear. Not sure why our mates here have decided to climb and move forward.
The battle is turning in our favor.
Draw these guys and see what we can do. I think this should break the enemy in the center here, and it's looking like that's happening. Brilliant, that's what we want to see. Let's send them in there. I do have these guys. I might just send them in as well, just to help with our units here. We'll bring up phalanx, pike phalanx here, back around, and let's recharge with the general. And that's a good victory for the start of our campaign. So I'm okay with them working on that. Those guys, and chase them down. Let's see if we've got anyone around here worth chasing. We'll go after them, I think. I'm okay with group 3 missiles, just having a go at them for the moment. In fact, I might actually just save missile infantry and not get them too involved. We said that, let's put these guys into melee and send them off. And let's just speed this up a bit. And I'm not too worried about these guys here. Said that no harm from sending our general in. Let's just keep our melee troops out of the way so they don't slow us down too much. I think once we take pair of these guys will be good to end the battle and take it back to the campaign map. Right, I'm pretty happy with that. A heroic victory. Thank you, I do fancy myself a little bit of a hero. And of course we're getting that typical result that you'll see in Rome 2, only losing a fraction of our force, but pretty much decimating the people we're up against. Some good kills on our cavalry here, what we want to see. And our sword infantry did pretty well. I think they were pretty important in that battle, just for locking up any loose phalanx and spear infantry that's just holding back a bit. Give our cavalry a bit more movement and flexibility. So let's have a look at what we can do. So we've captured 500 men. Now the money would be good, but if we look at the 500 men, there's not too many units they'll be going back into, so you might actually ransom. Let's go for the recruitment cost here. So I think what we'll do, let's just consolidate our forces a little bit here. So cavalry unit's not going to be doing us a huge favour with only 22 men there. What we'll do is we'll have a look at our settlement here. I say our settlement because it is going to be ours. Let's be honest. Let's encircle. I'm just thinking because the other resolve here is not looking too good. I think this is a fight that I'll do in person. In terms of our agents, let's see what we can do around here. So an assassinate's a decent enough chance. Opportune failure there. It's a bit of that kind of sucks, I guess, but got 3 more turns till we get a dignitary. What I might do is I think I'll end our episode here. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next episode where we will be launching a siege assault on Larissa. Alright, thanks for watching guys. See you then. Bye.